Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in as we move into the final piece of our 8-week English 1102 online course here. So we've just wrapped up essay number 1, which again was our opportunity to sort of pull all the pieces together that we had worked through in previous units and put them all together in that single essay. Fairly modest in scope, right, 3 to 4 pages, so not a super large thing, but again, our opportunity to sort of for the first time, bring all that individual stuff together in one kind of location, in one sort of assessment opportunity. So I am in the midst of providing feedback to people. You'll get probably a little note, the numerical grade, of course, and then a link to a video. So you'll see your essay on the screen and me kind of talking us through some of the strengths, some of the things to improve upon. So hopefully that works for you. Obviously, if you notice a problem, you can always be in touch by email with me. Okay, so let's take a look at where we head then. We get into the final units of our course, which will include 9, 10, and then 11, in addition to the opportunity for a student conference set of days here. And all of these units then are devoted to our final essay. So the essay is assigned here in Unit 9, but that's just the beginning piece. So it's not due by any means on this Friday. We work through it in a variety of stages here towards our final due date here down in Unit 11. Okay, so a couple of different things to look at then. I'm just going to skip Unit 9 for right now and point you towards Unit 10, which is our conference sign-up piece. So there's a number of dates set aside. You can find the sign-up here. We can meet face-to-face, we can connect on Skype, we can use this tool called Adobe Connect, which is like a virtual conferencing system. So I have some days and times set aside here. If none of them work for your schedule, or you have other things going on, by all means just be in touch with me and we can figure an alternate arrangement out. But it is really important that we connect in some venue to talk about your final essay. So the idea is you'd have as much of that final essay done as possible by whatever date it is that you and I would be meeting. So we can actually look at your essay. I wouldn't assign a grade to it, but I can certainly point out things that are really working, things that are not working, so you sort of get the opportunity to have it checked, right, in a very detailed way the more you've got done. If you're still just at the idea or brainstorming phase, then we'll talk about that, but it's certainly not as useful as if you've got a really good draft together that we can look at. And whether we're face-to-face or virtual, we can still look at the actual essay that you're writing. That's the nice thing about some of these virtual tools, is that they allow you to screen share, so I can actually see your document that you're working on. So there's no need to wait too long to get in here and sign up for a time, especially now that there's lots of these times open. Or if you realize that the times that I've laid out aren't going to work for you, it's good to let me know now, even if you haven't thought at all about the final essay for obvious reasons, but we can still start scheduling towards that those meeting dates. So we'll go back to Unit 9 then, which is our final essay assignment, not due date, but just assigned, and our last reading. So we're looking at Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller's famous play that's in our textbook. And certainly because it was meant to be seen as a theatrical production or a sort of visual thing, I am all in favor of you watching it while you're reading it. Not watching it instead of reading it, but the version that I provide here follows the script of the text almost word for word. So you really can kind of flip the pages as you watch the movie. And of course you can pause it and take a break and go back and do all this other stuff too. So I provided the link because the material doesn't show up directly in Blackboard. You have to do a couple things to your browser. If you want it to show up here, you can look at the browser help. There's a couple of buttons to click that I'll try to do right now. See if it'll work. But truthfully, you can just follow the link and it'll open in a separate browser and you can watch it there. So the movie version that I'm providing here is actually made for TV. It stars Dustin Hoffman as Willy Loman, a couple of other recognizable faces, maybe, what is it? John Malkovich, I think, as the Biff character. Anyway, a few people you might notice or recognize. But what you'll also see is that as a made-for-TV thing, or sort of like more of a movie. It's not just a filmed play version or theatrical production of the play, so they can use camera angles and cut between people and do sort of close-ups and faraway shots. So it's really easy to watch, and I think it makes what can be sometimes a confusing play, which features flashbacks and Willy Loman as a character kind of exists in the past and the present at the same time. That can be a little confusing if you don't really follow what's going on and you're just looking at it as words on a page. But when you see it, it's really not that complicated. Like I said before, it's meant to be looked at, not really read as a text. So I'm all for, you know, watching this movie version of it too. Okay, so that's the reading that we have in place. There's a little quiz, again designed mainly just to point your attention to some of the more important themes going on in the play. Not super high point value, but still hopefully valuable as a piece of actually writing your final essay, which is described here. So I try not to go through all of it. You can see there's lots of, you know, not even guidelines so much as just things to remember, things to keep in mind. Explanation for what type of essay that we're writing. So there's lots of, you know, detail here, so it should be pretty obvious in terms of what we're going for. So we're writing an essay that's very much similar to the first one that we wrote. We're not going off in a totally different direction. We're writing a slightly more complicated research essay about a literary work. So we're looking at about 5 to 6 pages, so just a few pages longer than our first essay. So again, not something that's radically different. Again, we're not counting that works cited page, and of course that's double spaced, just like our first essay. Something a little different though, that we're including 3 appropriate and relevant primary or secondary sources, I should say. So again, appropriate means that they're from those databases we've looked at, not just general websites or unrelated stuff. And relevant means that they are direct discussions of the primary text or texts that you're talking about, not just some related idea or kind of a tangentially related historical thing. They're actually database sources about the primary text itself. Some reminders about library assistance if you're looking for it. You can certainly get it right in person at the actual library, but there's other ways, whether it's just a basic telephone call or interacting via their website. So even if you're not an on-campus student, you can still take advantage of some of this stuff. So the topic, here's what we're doing. We're writing a comparison essay. So that's, again, it's similar in tone to our approach for the first essay, but in this case, instead of just analyzing one primary text, we're going to analyze or compare 2 of them. One of them should ideally be, I'm going to suggest you do the play because it's a new work, so you're not repeating yourself. There's lots of great research sources on it. There's tons of different themes to talk about, so it sort of lends itself to this final essay. So that would be my suggestion. But at least one of your primary texts should be from our syllabus or at the very outside included in our textbook. So if for whatever reason you just don't want to do the play, okay, but hopefully you have a good reason for that. And I'll probably ask you about it if you choose not to. Not that you can't exactly, but I think it really lends itself to the scope, the style, what we're trying to accomplish with this final essay here. So that's just one of your works of, and notice that I put it in quotes, literature here. Because the other one, the other primary text that you can talk about for your comparison here can be almost anything. This is where I want you to get really creative. So maybe you could take the play and compare it in terms of a theme or a character type, like a character relationship, you know, father-son, or even just a parent-child is an obvious one from the play. And then compare that, as it appears in the play, to something from a film that you know, or a novel that you've read, or a TV episode, or a TV show, a series of episodes, or a piece of music, right? Something that's way outside of our course, and something that's kind of surprising. That's what makes the comparison interesting, is it's not 2 works from our textbook, which is sort of predictable, but it's 2 things that on the surface wouldn't really appear that connected, but the job of your essay is to show how in fact they are, again in terms of like a theme, an idea, character type, whatever that might be. We obviously want to focus on comparison, right? How the things are similar, not how they're different. We already kind of know that they're different. Focusing just on those 2 primary texts. And what I want you to do is take a look at the PowerPoint I reference here at the bottom of this unit down here about how effectively to write a comparison essay. So we don't want to do just a big block of text about the one primary text you're using, like the play, and then a big block of your essay devoted to the other thing. We want them integrated, kind of back and forth, and it's called a point-by-point structure, and that's what we want to use. So again, when it comes time for me to read that final essay you've submitted, if you've done that big block comparison, it just sort of shows me that you haven't shown up to class. You haven't really read the material, which is right here to do. Okay, so that's the assignment itself, right? 3 secondary sources. You'll be using 2 primary texts as your points of comparison. Everybody's works cited then will have at minimum 5 entries, right? 3 for the secondary sources and then 2 primary sources. So fundamentally a comparison essay, but with lots of leeway about the texts that you can choose to compare. One really from our course, ideally the play, and then the other one something you can creatively come up with. Our immediate assignment for Unit 9 then is you suggesting a tentative topic. So again, a basic brainstorming session here. Maybe you have a bunch of topics you're throwing around. Maybe you hit on one that you think is really going to work. Maybe you're stuck and you just want to express that. Wherever you're at, it's just important that we get, like I say here, get those wheels turning, right? So the due date for that is, I believe, this Friday, but we'll pop into our due dates here just to see how it maps out moving forward. So we've just finished up the first essay here. You'll get that feedback soon. Then we turn around yet for the Friday where you start brainstorming the final essay. So you obviously want to read the play, watch the video, do the little quiz, but also just start brainstorming some ideas. And having to put it in a discussion board is just a way of kind of formalizing it. You're not locked into it. You could certainly change your mind, but at least this forces you to put, something out there. And then we'll have our student conference. Notice there's another discussion board in Unit 10 that's very similar to the one in Unit 9. It's sort of like, what's your topic? So you can update us on the topic, but also fill in the research piece. We want to know about some of your sources up to that point. We'll have a really guided peer exchange set up before we hand in that final essay. And then, of course, our final due date here is submitting the final essay. So Units 9 to 11 are really scaffolded so that we work through some brainstorming, opportunity for some feedback from me, feedback from a peer or a group of peers, and then hopefully you're confident in submitting that final essay. There are a lot of points riding on it, but to me that makes sense. We've worked through lots of kind of littler things in these early units, put them together in Essay 1, and you get some feedback about what worked, what didn't work, and now we really want to load the points at a place in the course where it kind of makes sense, since we've kind of worked our way up to that. Okay, so a bit of a long announcement here, but certainly worth looking at the big picture here as we get into our final units. So as always, be in touch with me if you have questions or concerns, and I will talk with everybody soon.